Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well. Today we're going to do the mid-year Freakout tag. I did it for the first time last year, and it's a really nice way to sum up your reading in the first half of the year, set new goals, expectations, reflect on your favorite books, and upon reflection, I have read considerably less this year by June than I did last year by June, which is disappointing. Not that I know I'm not going to read as much as I did last year, but I just recognize that I haven't been dedicating enough time to my reading. And I think, to be fair on myself, I've had a lot of changes this year that have just affected the time that I would usually spend reading. Number one, I moved in with a boy. Big change, exciting change. Number two, I just started a new job. All exciting, wonderful things, but definitely I need to find new windows and pockets of time to dedicate to reading because, well, I have read some incredible books. I just want to read more, dedicate more time to it. But anyway, let's jump in and do this tag that everyone and their mother will do, and we love it. Okay, so first, best book you've read so far in 2022. I think I can narrow it down to a rough top three, which I've spoken of in different lengths, some more than others, but I think my favorite, or I know my favorite, to be The Passion of New Eve by Angela Carter, which was the second book that I read this year, all the way back in January, but it surprised me, and I still obsess over it and think about these different scenes that Carter creates. It's kind of genre defying and bending. It plays with a lot. It's definitely an American dystopia, but it's also this horror fic. It's talking a lot about gender and violence and playing with that in a lot of really loud, extreme scenes. And it was impeccably written. And I think that's the thing that surprised me most. I just wasn't anticipating what a piece of art this is. And it's a lot. I'm not going to say it's not a lot. There's a lot of rape, a lot of violence, but I think what Carter creates is ripe for a study, ripe for essays, and I don't do that anymore. So I will send that task to someone else, but there's so much to unpack here while also making it absolutely enthralling to read. So I think she finds a really good balance there of saying a lot while making it engaging and fun to read at the same time. So, perfect. Then the other two, another one that I read in January, Vita Nostra by the Duchenkos. So this is a dark academia novel, but really playing with the weird and speculative and a little bit of horror as well. We're following a teenager named Sasha, and she is in a really confusing turn of events. She is kind of forced into this academy where she's not sure what she's studying. She's scared. She feels stuck and caught in this web of things that she doesn't understand and she feels like she can't get out of. And it gets really, really dark and progressively weirder and progressively more brilliant as we go along. So I absolutely loved this. It's really playing with the weird and bizarre in a setting that, this campus setting that we're really familiar with. So I loved kind of the juxtaposition of those two things. It was perfect. Then one that I read much more recently, Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. So this is, everyone loves this book, so I'm not an anomaly in that way, but I just thought it was perfectly done. I always cared, I was always invested. There's so many people to root for, but not even root for, just watching them exist with all the different backdrops of different changing politics and socioeconomic statuses, and it just feels deeply moving and personal and kind of we're watching them from a distance at the same time, and I just thought there's, again, so much to unpack here, but I just felt fully invested in a 600-page book, and I think about these people, and I loved it, loved it, loved it. Hopefully we'll be watching the new show, which I feel I don't necessarily need the show because there's just so much beauty here, and even the different scenes and homes and facial expressions you can really visualize. So I think it'll be interesting to see how the show takes that on, but loved it. Then, what's the next question? Best sequel you've read so far? So I haven't read any sequels. I've started new series, but I haven't read any sequels. I think one book that doesn't necessarily go with this category, but I'm gonna make it fit, is The Strange Bird by Jeff Vandermeer. So this is not a sequel, but it's a short story that's adding to the Bourne universe that Vandermeer created with Bourne and Dead Astronauts. I mean, you know this is my favorite cover. You know he's my favorite author, but I think this book, I mean, it's a short story, and it's absolutely as impactful as his other works. You fall in love with this creature. She's deeply soulful and thoughtful and vulnerable. There were beautiful moments, horrifying moments, a bunch of our old favorites, or rather old villains, returning and making appearance in this book. And I think his writing feels like really moving and odd and disconcerting, but like there's a lot of love in this book, and I think I was not anticipating that. So perfect. I'm so excited to continue reading his other series that I started, which is The City of Saints and Madmen, or the Ambergris trilogy. But yes, this book is like a really special one, so I'm so glad he added it to the Bourne world. But yeah, I haven't read any other sequels. There are ones that I need to read. Like I still need to read Insurrection by Tate Thompson. I started that sci-fi series, I don't know, a while ago, in like November of last year, and I just haven't picked it up yet. But I do have like the second or third books of series on my shelf. I'm sometimes like wanting to start something new instead of picking those up. New release you haven't read yet but want to. I think top of my list for that is Moon Witch Spider King by Marlon James. I'm dying to read that, but I do think I needed like those few months in between after finishing Black Leopard Red Wolf before picking that one up. So it's not a traditional sequel, but it's another iteration of the same story, and I think Black Leopard Red Wolf was so chaotic and there's so much happening. We're introduced to so many different landscapes, characters, storylines, origin stories, different histories of violence and interdependencies and fantastical powers. So there's a lot. So I think and the writing is like a whole other thing. But I needed a break, but now that Moon Witch Spider King has been out for some time and I've recovered from the full bodily experience of Black Leopard Red Wolf, I'm so excited to return to James's writing, and also that whole world. And I can't wait to see how he flipped that story that was like super convoluted on its head and told it from another angle, because yeah, there's just a lot to kind of go through and think of in that book, and he could have taken it so many different ways. So I'm excited to see what he felt was missing, or whose voice wasn't heard enough, or perspective, and how he added to the existing story. Most anticipated release for the second half of the year. I really haven't been paying attention at all, but I know Lapfona by Otessa Moshfegh is coming out in a matter of days, so it doesn't really count as the second half of the year, but that's like the one new release that hasn't come out yet that I'm so excited to read. I feel like last year I read so much of her work. I think the only other book that I haven't read of hers that's already out is Mick Glue, which is an itty bitty book. I don't know why I haven't read it yet. But I really felt like I dove into this woman's mind and all of her characters and stories and gripes with the world, and I miss her. So I know that book, Lapfona, is getting a lot of mixed reviews, but it's like a medieval Midsommar situation, as far as I gather, so I'm dying to read it. I can't wait. I'm gonna go pick it up in like the next few days. Okay. Biggest disappointment? I think I've got to say The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. That's the only book I've DNF'd in a very long time. I was listening to it on audiobook, and I know it's a classic, and I know people absolutely love Patrick Rothfuss, and I was missing something. I didn't get it. I didn't understand why people are so invested in this character. I was super quoth. I was bored by his voice, his narrative, his stories. I just couldn't make myself care. Biggest surprise, Black Leopard Red Wolf. The writing surprised me, the scope of the story, how invested Marlon James was in those characters and in their stories and in their their bodies and what they could do and their thoughts and the violences they would experience. It completely blew my mind, and I still think about it nonstop. And the writing like was really twisty and honestly messy, I would say, but intentionally so. I really had to like study it as if I was still in school, and I appreciated that he made me work that hard because it was so rewarding. But yeah, like the scope of the story and where it went and all of the characters, it was so fun, sometimes horrifying, so challenging, and I loved it. Favorite new author, debut or new to you? So I think my favorite debut author, which I've just talked about this book a lot, but that's Missouri Williams, who wrote The Deloriad. This just came out. This is a apocalyptic novel about an incestuous family line and all the depravities and horrors and levels of harm that are existing on this camp, specifically under the watchful eye of the matriarch, and what she forces her children to do, what they decide to do, what they feel compelled to do, and the unraveling of it all, and the unraveling of humanity. So it was like freaking amazing. I just did a reading vlog of it, but I loved it. Like, she is tabbied up. Incredible. So that's a debut novel, and I can't wait to read what else she writes, because I'm like, this woman's mind is like a little bit frightening, a little bit scary, a little bit depraved, and I love it. Newest fictional crush. I was thinking about this, and I don't know, I had a hard time. The only person was even remotely came into my mind was the husband in Sorrow and Bliss by Meg Mason, which can't remember his name for the life of me. But what a good man. I really, really loved him. He was vulnerable and patient and needed a hug, and he was compassionate and consistent, and I really appreciated the role he played in that story. But that's the only person even remotely on the radar. Newest favorite character. I'm not entirely sure. I think I would say Marie in The Matrix. Incredible woman, so cool, really vulnerable, but also like high-strung and moving mountains and all the rest. But I love the way she was written and how she grew. We saw her from like her teenage years all the way up until her death, so we knew this woman so fully, and she was a multiplicity of things, but ended up on top. So loved that. And then I already talked about this, but I loved the Strange Bird. In The Strange Bird, she surprised me and has a lot of soul and many layers of her being. So this is a character that I will not soon forget, even though it's an itty-bitty book. So Vandermeer has that power to really place characters in your mind with such permanence that they're never going anywhere. So what else? Book that made you cry. I don't know if I've shed... Okay, so no, The Strange Bird, the ending did something to me. I was not anticipating that. But then the only other ones that really made me feel emotional or sad was Pachinko, but also Min Jin Lee doesn't let you rest in that sadness. It's like we keep galloping along with this family, but you just really feel this closeness and beauty in these different mother-son, mother and sister-in-law relationships. There's so many beautiful relationships. So I loved this. And then also, I didn't love this book, but it definitely was freaking heartbreaking, and that's The Heart's Invisible Furies by John Boyne. Again, didn't always work for me. I think it falls into corniness a little bit too often, but there were real moments of beauty, and of course it's like an absolute tearjerker. So those were the only ones I could think of for that. Book that made you happy. We have an easy answer for this, everyone. I just finished this a few days ago, and I read it because I just finished The Deloriad, and I was going through it. But I picked up for the 20th, I don't know how many times, Anne of Green Gables. I took this from home last time I went home. I have all these mini paperbacks, but this is like one of the girls / women who like raised me. Her story, her energy, her red hair flying in the wind. Anne was like very important to me. It's like her, Amelia Bedelia, Lizzie McGuire, the Inkheart series. Like these were my people. So yeah, I had to return to her, and I haven't read this in a long time, and I felt a lot of joy talking about her red hair and her wild imagination and Gilbert. So yes, this makes me very happy. Let's see. Most beautiful book you've bought so far this year or received. So the two that I got that I think are beautiful in very different ways, and I just talked about this in my birthday book haul, so don't want to repeat myself too much, but this is Beasts of a Little Land, which I haven't read yet, but this cover art is absolutely incredible. Like, to fit so much movement and life on this small little page, I'm obsessed with it. And then in a very different vein, the delivery, I just think like this really simplistic, small mass, it feels like a little small mass market paperback with a lot more like weight to it, which I appreciate, but I just love this really simple design. And then of course, I've talked about these books over and over again recently, but Marco got me the new Picador collection of Vandermeer's Ambergris series and Hummingbird Salamander, those new covers, so I'll insert a little picture here, but I'm obsessed with that psychedelic, mushroom dripping cover design with all those really bold, bright colors, because that's like so Vandermeer. So I loved it. I love those. I have the ones that I've already read here, but the other ones still on my to-be-read shelf. Lastly, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? I think just more. But I'm going on a few trips, which I'm so excited about, that I feel like I'll be able to get some really good reading in. I think specifically I want to read the two Hilary Mantels that I picked up recently. So that's Mantel Pieces and then A Place of Greater Safety, which, you know, one of them is a really chunky book. But what I'm really focusing on and wanting to finish soon is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. I have been listening to this book for months and I'm loving it. I haven't been bored for a second. It's just like, it's not the type of audiobook I can listen to while I'm like bopping around cleaning. It's one I really want to like savor because there's so many wild, whimsical characters, and I actually think those are some of my new favorite characters. The whole cast of that book, they're so funny, so charming and deceiving and whimsical and wild and extravagant. They're magicians, and I'm loving it. So I really want to finish that and focus on that. What else? I just did a huge birthday book haul. Like a few weeks ago, I just had my birthday. So any book in that pile, I think I will do a video soon of like packing my travel books, and we'll pick priorities for that. But you know me, I'm really a big book girl. I would rather read a bunch of really thick books because I love to get sucked into a story. So I think Moonwitch, Spider King, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, A Place of Greater Safety, Insurrection, like I just said. I would love to read more Tana French. But yes, I will direct you over to the birthday book haul because those are all the ones on my radar for the foreseeable future. That is the whole tag. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you have loved so far this year, your top 1 to 3 favorite books, and then also what you're focusing on reading in the remainder of the year. But yeah, I'm just gonna try to read. I'm just focusing on reading versus all the new books I want to read. I just want to find the time to do it. But yes, I hope you're all well, and I will see you very soon in another video. Bye everyone.